Mayor, you pretty much reminded me why I love it here so much. Number one, to walk in here and see so many people that I know. I came here when I got married. I didn't make it 39 years like you did, but I still am here anyway. And to see so many people, and I have taken your advice. I do a lot of shopping downtown. Some people that I've met here, I've met late at night downtown, so that's kind of fun to run into all of them also. And I think the motto of Danville is don't do anything in Danville that you don't want everybody to know about, because they will know about it. So it's nice to see the supervisor. We both get our hair cut at the same place. So I won't tell any secrets that you have told Kirsten. I know that absolutely that what happens in the hairdresser stays in the hairdresser. I got that exactly. Yes, I raised my kids here, went to Monte Vista High School. I live in Alamo right now, so I didn't hear Alamo mentioned, but I know that Alamo is an extension of Danville pretty much. And our unincorporated things become your headaches sometimes, I know, undoubtedly. And yes, I've been so fortunate to be in this community this is my 41st year in the Bay Area as a sportscaster here. Here's how conditioned I am. After Diana did that wonderful rendition of the national anthem, I was looking for a flyover and a kickoff after that. I've been incredibly fortunate to do all those things these years, to be there in person when Dwight Clark made the catch, to be there in 1989 with, it wasn't a pleasurable thing, but to say you were at the Earthquake World Series, to be there when Travis Ishikawa hit the home run that sent the Giants into the World Series on that walk-off day in San Francisco. And same as your kids, I work in Oakland, and the streets there, I think it's fair to say, are not quite as well maintained as they are here in Danville. So when I come back home, I am very happy to see how nice and kept everything is and clean. Do we still have Raider fans here? Okay, I'll talk more slowly for you guys. When the Raiders were still in town, I went out to their facility one day, and the guys were studying for their mandatory drug test that day. Somebody told them that a positive result on a test was a good thing, so they were studying. But I have one of those for the 49ers as well. A few years ago, when they were having trouble scoring any points at all, it was before I think that was in the Mike Nolan or Mike Singletary or somewhere in that era when they weren't scoring any points. And there was a little sports bar on the peninsula, I think it was in Burlingame. And it was a place where people go to watch the game. They had all the big screens tuned into the game. And the guy at the bar had a dog that was sitting at the bar. And you don't normally see that. The 49ers kicked the field goal. The dog kind of made a little motion somehow to buy a round of drinks for everybody at the bar, produced a $100 bill. And everybody said, man, that's a pretty cool dog, that's amazing. Well, about that time, the opposing team turned the ball over and the 49ers kicked another field goal. And the dog did the same thing again. Man, the bartender said, we don't usually let dogs in here, but that dog can stay as long as he wants. And the guy sitting next to him said, tell me, what does the dog do when the 49ers score a touchdown? He goes, I don't know, I've only had him for 2 years. You can substitute any team you want in there for that. They're having trouble scoring. But I think a couple of things that usually people, I think it's been a labor of love for me for 41 years to do something, and I was in Salinas, Monterey for 5 years before that. So you can do the math pretty easy to see that I have more years behind me than in front of me at this point. But I've had the pleasure of doing something that I really enjoy doing pretty much every day. And with all jobs, it's not all fun. There's work associated with it as well, obviously. And I think the thing that I will never miss once I'm not doing this anymore is no matter what kind of day you've had, no matter what kind of stresses there are that day, the 6 o'clock news starts at 6 o'clock every night. So when the day comes when I can say it's 5:59 and I'm comfortable sitting in a chair here and I can stay in this comfortable chair, that's the one thing that I will not miss about the deadlines. There's always a deadline. So that's the one thing that I think everybody that you talk to in the business says when that day comes when you can just relax, that would be a different thing because you always have to prepare for what's coming next. But I've been so fortunate to do that all these years, and And I suppose people always are interested, well, how do you get started? How do you get started? I have a lot of people have kids that want to be in media, and I'm always happy to share with them. You know, the industry has changed dramatically, and the thing that has changed it is technology. You know, if you think about the fact that, you know, cell phones, which are such a part of our lives, have only been around for, 20 years or so. And all the information that you get on a cell phone, anybody under 40 is largely getting their information all day long on their phone, and they're not waiting for the nightly news. So we've had to evolve with that. All of the electronic traditional radio and television stations have websites to get your information that way as well. But the one thing that I think, you know, I'll just get on my media speech here for a moment. The one time that we have to be the thing that we have to be really concerned about these days, we are bombarded with more information than we ever have been in the history of our civilization. And you don't know where the origins of that information are coming from. If it gets retweeted, you know, 8 million times, people start thinking that it's fact, and it isn't necessarily. And the one thing about traditional media, we still have accountability. If I get up there and say, you know, I really don't like the fact that the 49ers lost the NFC Championship game against Philadelphia. I really prefer that they're in the Super Bowl. And I get up there and tell you, well, you know, you saw the final score, but that isn't really what happened, and it's the 49ers going to the Super Bowl. I get one chance to do that, and they say, you know, you're out of here because you have accountability. If you're not working for anybody and you have a phone, and you could reach more people with your phone than I can reach on a nightly newscast, you could reach the whole planet with your phone. It doesn't matter what you say. If it gets repeated enough times, starts to get traction, people start believing that's true. So at this time, when we have access to more information than we've ever had in our lives, is when we need to be the most, I don't know about suspicious, but at least be conscious of the origins of that information. So there's my one little media speech for the day, but I really believe So people always ask, how did you get started? I went to that academically renowned institution of California State University, Chico. Thank you very much. I do have a degree, so it means I didn't just purely party at Chico State. And I was an athlete in high school, and then I tried to play baseball in college. And after 2 years of being on the team and wearing a uniform and not getting in a game and recognizing that I do not want to be the Rudy of Chico State baseball, it was time to, you know, concentrate on something else. So I was lucky enough to transition into a major in media, and got a job at a little station up there. And that's kind of the way broadcasting works. It's not unlike professional sports. You start on an entry level. If you succeed there, you move up to a medium-sized market, and then hopefully one day you get to a big market, which is what the greater San Francisco Bay Area is. And it's a destination market. There's a reason why, you know, Julie Hayner stays here as long as she stayed here. The reason Mark Vine stayed here all these years before he retired. Why I did. The other people that you see on the other stations. Once you get to the San Francisco Bay Area, number one, there's only 3 or 4 markets bigger than the greater San Francisco Bay Area, and obviously the bigger the market, the more you get paid. But it's also, do I want to go live in New York or Chicago or LA? I don't. You know, I love it here, and so I've been fortunate enough. We call it a destination market. So I've been fortunate enough to do that. So that's kind of the road of how you get here. Along the way, there are any number of crazy things that happen. I was in Salinas, Monterey for 5 years before I came here. We had a gentleman who was a former CBS executive who retired in that part of the world, but still wanted to have his hand in media. And he was our general manager. His name was Jack White. I never saw Jack White out of anything except an absolutely polished three-piece suit. He wasn't Jack, he was Mr. White when he went in his office. And a very distinguished former CBS executive who was running the station in Salinas, Monterey, because he loved that part of the world. So think back to the days, again, you know, we're talking 40 years ago. So there's no movies on demand, there was no Blockbuster, there was none of that yet. Remember the days when a big time theater movie would premiere on television for the first time. And it was a big deal. So let's just pick a movie of the era. Let's say it was Jaws. I don't remember the exact movie. So it's airing on our air that night in prime time from 8 to 11. And of course the newscast is always the next thing that comes after the movie. So promoted all week, the free premiere of Jaws. You'd only be able to see it in the theater before. First time on television. We're going to have a huge audience that night. So it's on that Saturday night. Well, at a smaller station like that on Saturday night on the weekends, it's a skeleton crew. The only people in the building are the engineers who are keeping us on the air, and the news people, because we have a newscast. All the sales people and all the maintenance people and all those people, they're a Monday through Friday job. This is Saturday. I was working weekends. So this movie, we have a huge audience. And it's about a half an hour before news time. And we're on deadline and we're preparing our scripts, and now it's about 15 minutes before, and the newswoman and myself and the weather guy go out and sit on the set, and we're kind of thumbing through our scripts and all that. And when you're on the set before the newscast, and this is when we still had camera operators, people on the cameras, which you don't anymore, they're robotic cameras now, but we used to have people on the cameras. And if you know anything about photography and you want to stay in focus, you zoom in as far as you're going to zoom in, you focus, and then you zoom out, and then everything in that field stays in focus theoretically from that point forward. You know what I'm talking about. So the studio camera operators are zooming in on our noses and focusing, and then zooming out and zooming in on the corner of your mouth and focusing. And the woman that's doing the news, it has her little compact out, and she's putting on makeup and doing her hair and all that. Well, unbeknownst to us, as this huge audience is building to the dramatic conclusion, let's use Jaws, and they're down underwater with the shark. The guy that in the control room accidentally switches us on live. So you are watching a huge, biggest audience in Salinas, Monterey that year is watching Pam Cox do her makeup. Thankfully, I was just like looking through my scripts or whatever, but you got to see my nose like that. And so what happens? Of course, the phones light up. It's the weekend. There's no switchboard operator on the weekend, so all the phone calls are going into the newsroom where there is nobody, because the people who are in the newsroom are now sitting on the set. Okay, I had never seen Jack White in his bathrobe before. But here comes this streak of a man of white hair running up to the control. You're on the air! So as soon as he said that, they switched back over just in time for the closing credits opening. So nobody knew if the shark got him or not, or whatever happened with any of that. And then we have to come out 1 minute later after commercial and say, "Good evening, everyone. Here's what's happening in the news tonight. Would you like to see another close-up of my nose?" So those are the kind of things that can happen in small market TV. There's a similar story if you're familiar with the Heidi game at all. The Heidi game, which was the Raiders. I don't know why the Raiders always played a game that have a name. The Immaculate Reception, the Holy Roller, the Sea of Hands. For whatever reason, the Raiders were always in one of those kind of games. And that the famous, if you don't know that story, that was the first time that network television figured out that people still actually cared about the NFL, which right now, pro sports, actually televised sports, is the only thing left that is still appointment viewing. You can't DVR, you don't say, I think I'm going to binge watch the whole second half of the 49ers season. You still watch it live. So if you watch it live, that means you have to watch the commercials. You can't speed through the commercials. So that's kind of job security for us. We're the last thing left in modern television that you actually sit down and have to watch live. You don't want to hear on Wednesday what happened in the NFC Championship game. You actually sit down on Sunday and watch it. So, but this is before the network television figured this out. So the Raiders are playing the New York Jets out here, and this is kind of an indication as well of how the media, you've heard of the East Coast bias. There's probably no better example of that than this. They're playing an afternoon game here out in Oakland. It starts at 1 o'clock our time, going to be over at 4 o'clock our time, going to be over at 7 o'clock East Coast time. And East Coast, the NBC affiliate in New York, and all the people that are on the Eastern time zone, had a little movie called Heidi, which is this Bavarian girl going through the Alps or whatever, singing songs, sound of music kind of thing or something. And they had been promoting Heidi all week, and they had never, up to that time, had a football game that had run longer than 3 hours. There were no TV timeouts in those days. There were not all the things that there are. There were not, the replays and all the things that slow the game down now. So the Raiders are playing this incredibly exciting game against the New York Jets, and they both are in contention for it was the AFL then. I don't think it was the AFC, but AFL championships, which would play the NFL champion in the Super Bowl. And the Raiders are driving, but the Jets have a 1-possession lead. I don't know, they have a 5-point lead or something. But the Raiders are driving, and the guys in the control room got 7 o'clock, and they just pulled the plug on the ball game and went to Heidi. So the New York switchboards just lit up. In the meantime, the Raiders score a touchdown to take the lead. They kick off to the Jets, who fumble again, and the Raiders score again. And they scored 2 touchdowns in about a minute and a half, and nobody in the Eastern Time Zone got to even see that. And so they had never had that ever happen before. So that's a very similar thing, the Heidi game, to what happened with Jaws. And then actually the way that thing ended was on Huntley and Brinkley. Remember those guys, along with Walter Cronkite, the most trusted man in America. I don't know if we say that about anybody anymore now. But they actually had to go on the nightly news the next night, and they apologized and played that last 5 minutes of the game for the Eastern Time Zone audience. Now, everybody knows about the Heidi game. Didn't even affect the West Coast because it was only 4 o'clock here. So it didn't even affect us, but it was such a big deal because it only affected the people in the Eastern Time Zone. So, I don't know, there's a couple of little nuggets, and I know, Judy, by the way, this woman, okay, so I ran into her one summer downtown, and I said, yeah, this kind of feels like this is becoming my home. And she goes, okay, well, I have some plans for you. You're going to be talking to our groups and stuff. I go, okay, happy to do that. So.
Thank you. So we're going a little long, but I hope that's okay. I'm just going to do a quick lightning round. I'm going to do 3 quick questions.
Okay, I'll try to make my answers quick. I'm not really good at that, but I'll try.
And the first question, and this is something a lot of people in this room are aware of. So we have a local athlete who happens to be the son of your counterpart, Julie Hayner. Jake Hayner had a great year at Fresno State. How's he doing, and what's the best fit for a team for him?
Yeah, I just talked to Julie about that the other day, and Julie knew nothing about football. Then she had 2 sons who were athletes and one who was going to be drafted in the NFL. All of a sudden, Julie's the biggest football fan in the world. And by all accounts, Jake, at the combine, they projected him to be kind of a mid to late round pick, and apparently had a really good combine. He made some of the throws that you have to make in the NFL, which is that kind of deep out and some of those. And now they're projecting him to be somewhere like, he could go as high as the 3rd or 4th round. But to answer your question, where the ideal thing on any NFL team is to not have a rookie quarterback be your starter. You want to understudy under somebody, and we saw that happen with Pat Mahomes under Alex Smith. It happened with It happened with Favre and Aaron Rodgers. So that's the more ideal way. So I would say a team that's looking for a young quarterback to bring along, that probably has already an established veteran. And I do have to tell you one Monta Vista story while we're talking about Jake. I never got to see him personally because I had 8 straight years at Monta Vista going to every football game and every basketball game because I had cheerleaders. I had daughters. I have 3 daughters. So one of my great stories is I'm freshman. No one goes to the freshman games on Thursday afternoon except parents of the cheerleaders or parents of the players. That goes on with people there. So I walk in and I think Monta Vista is getting ready to play Antioch or something in a preseason game, first game of the year, about 5 minutes before game time. And I recognize 3 or 4 of the cheer moms down low, and they're sitting at the absolute lowest row in the seat of the stands. I go, what are you guys doing down here? They go, well, we can see the girl. I go, well, I'm going up to watch the game. So I go up, and of course it's the dads of all the players up there. And I go, well, mine's number 52. Mine's number 33. Which one's yours? Like, ponytail, red ribbon, right? and then on one of those games, that's my other daughter. So freshman game again, and I'm up in the stands, same thing, watching the game. And there's a guy up there who goes, hey, you're that guy on TV. I go, yeah, how you doing? He goes, my name's Earl. I go, Earl, nice to meet you. And his son Amari was a defensive lineman for Monta Vista. I go, man, your son's pretty good. And we're talking about music and sports and whatever. And the game's over, and I go down to see my daughter, and she goes, Dad, what were you doing talking to E40? She was absolutely embarrassed that I was talking to E40. And I said, I didn't know who that was. That's just Earl. So yeah, Monta Vista has given me lots of fodder for, and then I'll give you one other one. So again, freshman, my days off are Thursday and Friday because everything happens in sports on the weekends. So when your days off are Thursday and Friday, that means you can drive the cheerleaders wherever they're going. So we're going over to one of the new schools, when Freedom and the other ones that were built over there, when Liberty and Brentwood used to be the only one, and now there's 2 other ones, Freedom and Heritage, thank you. So it was same deal. You got to go over there way early because they got to practice doing whatever they're doing. I mean, number one, I stopped the car once and asked them, just talk, but please don't scream. Dad, you're embarrassing me, that kind of thing. But so we get there and they're asking for volunteers for the chain gang. They don't, it's a freshman game. And I go, that sounds like fun. You go volunteer for the chain gang. So of course now I'm down on the field, and my daughter tapped, what are you doing down here? I said, forget it, don't worry about me. This would be fun. I've never been at a chain gang. This would be fun to do this. So Monta Vista has like a 2-touchdown lead late in the first half, and they have the ball on about their own 20-yard line, but it's 4th and long, and they're going for it. And I hear my daughter's voice behind me, and I go, why are we going for it on 4th down? You know, all that's going to happen, why aren't we punting? All that's going to happen is if we don't get a first down, we're going to give them a short field, and they might go in and get momentum at halftime, and it'll be 14-7 instead of 14-0. And I'm going, yeah. So this assistant coach turns around and looks at her and goes, who are you? And I just said, yes, I have cheerleaders, but they know the game. And of course, the other girl was going, what? But yeah. Anyway, sorry, Judy, I went long. I told you I would probably go long.
So on the same subject, the football subject, and the freshman quarterback, Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, any thoughts?
Yeah, Brock Purdy did what you're not supposed to be able to do. You know, you're not supposed to be able to come right off the college campus, step in, and just, what was he, he was 8-0, and the only game he lost was the one where he got his elbow hurt on the first series. You know, so he exceeded everything that you're supposed to be able to do on that level. And he had won, without question, he was going to be the starting quarterback going into camp. But now there's obviously so much uncertainty about he had his surgery, Friday, and they said it was, by all accounts, successful with about a 6-month rehab, which is about when the season starts. So now Trey Lance will have a chance in mini camps and all that to be the guy, but he really has never developed to the point where they expected him to be at this point. But he's only been in 4 games, you know, so they really don't know what they have with him, and that's why they signed Sam Darnold the other day as a 1-year kind of insurance policy. So I would say if Brock Purdy's healthy, then he is the 49ers starting quarterback, backed up by Trey Lance, and with Sam Darnold as insurance. And honestly, financially, the 49ers are in an incredible position in that regard because both those guys are on rookie contracts. You know, the established NFL quarterback is the highest paid guy, and you know what Tom Brady was making, $35 million or something in his last year. Aaron Rodgers makes something like that. Pat Mahomes is going to make that kind of money. And if you have that much money tied up on one player in your salary cap, it doesn't enable you to sign other players, like do an extension with Nick Bosa, which they're going to have to do, or sign that free agent guy from the Eagles that they just signed a couple of days ago. They wouldn't have had the money to do that if they had all their cap money tied up in a quarterback. So the fact that they have 2 of those guys at an affordable salary allows them to strengthen those other positions as well. So they're kind of built to do it right now. You know, it's a window. You only have a window of a certain amount of time because the shelf life for an NFL football player, first time I ever saw, the game I played in high school was called football, but it wasn't that game I see those guys playing. You know, the toll that it takes on their bodies. We all know about the head stuff, but even just their joints and the bruising and the injuries. I saw, for this kind of opened my eyes. Remember Paul Hofer was a running back for the 49ers? He was one of those guys that his only way of running with the ball is run through people. He didn't try to get around anybody. And in the days when Candlestick still had that, when it was shared with baseball and had the dirt infield, and Paul Hofer had about the whitest skin that a human being could have. It like reflected light off of him, where you could see every bump and bruise and whatever on his body. And I remember seeing him come out of the shower one day and you could see the face mask and the crossbars scar, like purple, multiple ones on the front of his body, multiple ones on the back of his body. His elbows and knees were all skinned up from the dirt infield, and he was walking like that, come out of the shower, and he was about 25 years old. And I remember just seeing that for the first time, being in a professional locker room and saying, you know, whatever those guys are getting paid, they earned every cent of it out there today because they are taking risks and they're getting hurt in a way that most people don't in their occupation. I just remember that kind of stuck in my head.
All right, last one. How are the Warriors going to finish the season?
Oh, boy. Tonight will be a good indication. They're on the road tonight. In our news last night, we did the disparity between they have the 4th best record in the league at home and are tied for the worst record in the league on the road. And they are, right now, 2 nights ago when they won, and they did not play last night, they moved up to the number 5 spot in the West, which you do not want to be lower than 6. I mean, they were 3 last year and they won the whole thing. So where they're seated really doesn't matter too much to them. But you don't want to be below 6, because if you're below 6, you play in that playing game thing, and you could be 1 and out in that, the way they've changed the playoffs this year. So they're 5 right now, but tonight is the first of 5 straight on the road.
They need to be 4 to play the home games.
Yes, 4 you get the home court, exactly.
And they're only good at home.
Well, this year, that's right. I mean, last year they were a 3, so they basically had the home court over Boston, but they did not have the home court over Memphis and who else did they play? Denver and Dallas. They did, because those were lower seeds. But they did not have the home court over Memphis last year, and they still won that series. But yeah, it's and no one could really put their finger on what is the difference. Why? I mean, they gave up 48 points in the first quarter the other night, on the road. So we'll see tonight. They're in LA to play the Clippers, and that's a very, it's so stacked up right now. Very important game for them. If they win that one, it kind of gets them up a notch. If they lose that one, they're right back in the pack with all those other teams that don't want to be 6 or lower. So, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure to be here. It reminded me where I'm going to stay here as long as I'm upright, as long as I can. So, yeah. Thank you for having me be part of this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.